Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Continuing with our discussion on Bible stories, we're talking about the book of Genesis, and today we're going to talk about the actual temptation of Adam and Eve to eat the apple and the subsequent expulsion from Eden that we all know so well. So the one thing we need to get really clear on before we start our discussion is that the God of the Abrahamic tradition is supposed to be a non-dualistic God. And we see countless references to this, both in the Jewish tradition and in the Christian tradition. Whatever anybody might say, the God of the Old Testament and the New Testament is supposed to be a non-dualistic God. And this is affirmed again and again, countless times in both traditions. And you only have to look at the Tetragrammaton, which is the holy name of God, which is considered taboo in the Jewish tradition, and no one even pronounces this name. We have countless euphemisms for it, and the reason for that is because God is supposedly so ineffable and so infinite and universal and one that we as human beings aren't even capable of pronouncing the name correctly. And in the Christian tradition, if you ask anyone, any Christian, they will emphatically state that the existence of Jesus does not contradict the non-dualistic nature of God. This is something that Christians are absolutely adamant that the existence of Jesus and the existence of the Trinity are not supposed to contradict the non-dualistic nature of God, even though everything, every single detail of both traditions emphasizes that they believe that it is a dualistic God. And all of these assertions on both sides that God is both non-dualistic and dualistic, that's all nonsense. It's not possible that God could be both dualistic and non-dualistic. This is not some kind of mysterious mystical paradox. It's an oxymoron. If you understand those two English words, if you understand what they actually mean, it is not possible for anything to be both non-dualistic and dualistic. It's just, that's what non-dualism is. It means that it's not dual. Can't be. So if we take this as our starting point, that God is at least supposed to be non-dualistic, even if the Jewish and Christian traditions don't paint God as non-dualistic, then this casts the expulsion from Eden in a completely different light. The non-dualistic reading of the Old Testament and the New Testament actually is that all of the characters and all of the stories are archetypes for the individual. They're us. Every single character is me, every single character is you, every single character in the Bible is every person you will ever meet. And every single person you will ever meet is constantly going through these psychodramas, acting out these archetypal cycles. And the story of the Garden of Eden is no exception. The word Adam, as we've said, in Hebrew means a person. Adam is an archetype for the individual. And the eating of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is dualism. This cycle is going on all the time in our minds and our hearts and our souls, every minute of every day. That's what an archetype is. The burning bush, Jonah and the whale, Jacob wrestling the angel, the exodus from Egypt. These are archetypal psychodramas that are playing themselves out in our lives constantly. What we have to remember is that from a non-dualistic reading of the Bible, we're still in the Garden of Eden. We're there right now. We're living in the perfected state that we were in before we tasted of the knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge of good and evil is dualism. It is the belief and the worldview that God is separate from us, that we're fallen, that we're in an imperfect state where we can never attain to oneness with God ever again. That is the dualistic knowledge of good and evil that expelled us from the garden. And if it's true that God is non-dualistic and that we're already in these states, then the right course of action is to reverse that process and to embrace our non-dualistic oneness with the divine. The dualists among us would have us believe that we were created in the image of God, but that we are not God. They would tell us that it's blasphemy and heresy and demonic for an individual to say, I am one with God, or I am God, or God is me, or God is, that we are God. That it sounds horribly blasphemous to say that. But the fact is, we were created in the image of God in our dualism. The multiplicity that we see around us is the image. It's the facsimile of the infinite oneness of this divine being. The image, the facsimile, the illusion is that we are individuals, that I'm a person separate from all of you, and that each of us is living, in this self-contained, discrete package, separate and away from everyone else, including God. That's the image that is not the true Godhead. The true Godhead is this infinite one being. And this multiplicity that we see around us is the facsimile. It's an image of God, but it is not God. This reality that we're living in. And to reverse the expulsion from Eden, to correct that error that was made, we have to embrace the reality of our oneness and the divine holiness that oneness is. And it's not one person claiming to be God. The entirety of existence is that oneness. There is no one who's above anybody else. There is no one who is holier. There is no one who is better. There is no one who is closer to God than anyone else, because we're it. So if we think about it, the expulsion from Eden never happened, and everything that happened after that is part of this dualistic charade that organized religion has cooked up to make us think that we're in a fallen state when the opposite is true. And all we have to do is open our eyes and see the truth that's in front of us, that we're already in a perfected state. The world that we live in is as perfect as it can possibly be. Everything that we consider wrong or imperfect about it is actually the system working the way it's supposed to create this holiness and togetherness and this meaning, this depth of love and connection that we're all capable of. And the only thing that's stopping us from experiencing all of that is ourselves. We can experience all of that anytime we want to. There's literally nothing stopping us. So I hope that helps somebody today. I'll see you next week.